1985, Nashville, Michigan. A quiet town where doors stayed unlocked and neighbors trusted one another. But that fall, a gruesome discovery shattered its sense of safety. The body of a 24-year-old Army veteran, Rodney Fancher, was found shot and dumped in a roadside ditch. Who killed him and why would unravel into one of Michigan's most tangled small-town murder cases. This story isn't just about a killing. It's about jealousy, betrayal, and a family conspiracy that stunned an entire community. Before we begin, if you're into true crime stories that reveal not just the crime, but the hidden motives and the human flaws behind them, subscribe to this channel. It helps us keep bringing you stories like this one. Chapter 1. A Town Shaken. Rodney Fancher wasn't a stranger to hardship. Born in 1961, he grew up in Michigan, and those who knew him described him as dependable and determined. He enlisted in the U.S. Army, serving 3 years. Friends recalled his sense of duty and his belief in service and discipline. He wasn't flashy, but he was steady. When he returned home in 1985, life was in transition. Rodney was engaged to Cora Bouchard, and they were planning a future together. But the Bouchard household where they lived was far from peaceful. Cora shared the small house with her 2 young sons, her mother Anna, her sister Peggy, Peggy's husband Harold Snake Stevens, and a brother named Larry. Too many people, not enough money, and constant strain. Rodney, determined to contribute, began looking for work. Chapter 2. Rodney's Last Night. Back then, finding odd jobs wasn't done online. It was done on bulletin boards at truck stops and taverns. Rodney's name and phone number ended up on one of those boards. That's how Richard Hoover entered the picture. Hoover reached out and offered Rodney $80 to help unload a truck. The meeting point, a tavern in Potterville, Michigan. For Rodney, it was simple. A day's work, quick cash. One small step toward providing stability for Cora and her kids. But when Rodney showed up that October evening, things already felt off. Hoover's truck was parked under a burned-out streetlight, cloaked in shadow. Still, Rodney climbed in. He believed he was heading to work. Instead, he was being driven to his death. Hoover steered the truck down a gravel road outside Nashville. Remote, dark, silent. There, Rodney was shot. His body was rolled into a ditch, discarded like trash. For nearly 2 days, nobody knew where he was. At home, maybe there was frustration, maybe confusion. But on October 5th, 1985, a farmer driving along that gravel road spotted the shape of a body in the ditch. It was Rodney. The news hit Nashville like a thunderclap. Violent crime wasn't supposed to happen there, not in a small farming town where everyone knew everyone. And yet here was a soldier, young, disciplined, with a life ahead of him, gunned out in cold blood. If you want to follow more cases where small details expose bigger truths, make sure you hit subscribe. These are the stories we bring every week. Chapter 3. Family Ties, Dark Motives. Investigators quickly focused on Richard Hoover. Who was he, and why had he lured Rodney to the tavern? It didn't take long to learn that Hoover wasn't just a truck driver. He was connected to Tony Hill, a man tied to Harold Snake Stevens and his wife Peggy, Rodney's would-be in-laws. The theory took shape. Rodney wasn't killed at random. He was set up. Investigators learned that Peggy Stevens, Cora's sister, was deeply entangled in the conspiracy. Jealousy, resentment, and financial strains swirled in that overcrowded household. Rodney, with his Army background and plans to build a stable future with Cora, may have been seen as a threat to the fragile balance inside that home. The trigger man was Tony Hill. Witnesses described how Peggy and Harold pushed for Rodney to be eliminated. Their reasons weren't entirely clear, whether it was resentment, money, or simply wanting Rodney out of the picture. But the fact was undeniable. This wasn't random violence. It was a family-driven plot. For Cora, the revelations must have been devastating. Her fiancé wasn't murdered by strangers. He was betrayed by people she knew, her own sister, her brother-in-law, perhaps even her mother. Peggy eventually flipped. She testified against her own family in exchange for immunity. Her testimony laid bare the tangled alliances and bitter resentments inside the Bouchard-Stevens household. Tony Hill admitted to pulling the trigger, but it was Peggy's words that sealed the fate of Harold Stevens and Anna Bouchard. This wasn't just murder. It was betrayal within a family, a breach of trust that cut deeper than the crime itself. Chapter 4. Trials, Justice, and Questions. Left behind. The legal battles stretched on for years. Harold Stevens and Anna Bouchard went on trial, their family dirty laundry laid out in front of juries. Peggy's immunity deal sparked outrage. Was she telling the full truth or protecting herself? The case even reached the Michigan Supreme Court. Anna Bouchard's conviction was reviewed, with justices noting trial errors and questioning whether she'd received a fair process. But ultimately, they ruled that multiple juries had convicted her, and another, they reasoned, likely would again. Justice in this case wasn't neat. It was messy, layered with conflicting testimony, bitterness, and broken family bonds. Rodney Fancher was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Gardens in Dimondale, Michigan. A soldier, a fiancé, a young man with plans, all cut short. For Nashville, the case left scars. A town that had prided itself on safety and trust had to reckon with a harsh truth. Sometimes danger doesn't come from outsiders. Sometimes it comes from across the dinner table. The murder of Rodney Fancher remains one of Eaton County's most shocking crimes, not just for its brutality, but for the betrayal at its core. Rodney's story is tragic because it began so ordinarily. A soldier on leave, a man just trying to find work, a family trying to get by. But beneath the surface, resentment boiled over into conspiracy. When we look back, it's tempting to ask, how could anyone do this? But the most haunting murders often aren't committed by strangers in the night. They're committed by people we know. If you found this story compelling, stay with us. We cover true crime cases where trust is broken and justice is pursued, even when the path is anything but simple. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next story, and let us know in the comments. Do you think Peggy Stevens deserved immunity for her role in this case?